Welcome back to The Collector's Compass, a show where we explore the intersections between collecting, community, and mental clarity. I'm your host, Alex Efron, founder of Collectors MD. And today we have a powerful conversation ahead of us with someone whose transparency and resilience have really stood out to me in the hobby. Please welcome Andrew Smith, better known as Tecmo Cards.
Great to be here, Alex. Appreciate you having me on.
Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank
So
you.
for those of our listeners who are not familiar with you or your background, do you mind giving a quick intro as to who you are, where you're based, and how you got into collecting?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Andrew Smith at Tecmo Cards, Instagram, TikTok, more recently. And I live in Englewood, not Inglewood with an I, but with an E, just outside of Dayton, Ohio. Which actually, I mean, Ohio seems like it's become really like a sports card show and card shop kind of hotbed recently. Card Collector 2 is about 70 minutes east of here. Cincinnati's got some big shows. National is just in Cleveland. So, Ohio's where it's at with the hobby. And I've lived around too. I lived in Nebraska, Wisconsin, upstate New York, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. So I'm well traveled. I throughout all that time, the hobbies more or less followed me pretty much everywhere. My earliest memories of getting into the hobby were I was living in upstate New York, Clifton Park, New York, and they had this. There's this. There's a country store. It's like the Jonesville Country Store. I'd ride my bike about like maybe a mile or so from where we lived at the time, and to this place that would have like candy and baseball cards, and then upstairs might have literally been one of those vacs and videos. Like I don't know why those things always paired together, vacuum cleaners and videos. But I think it sold at like upstairs, and I'd go there and I'd get like 89 or 88, I forget, Donruss for like $1 a pack, and I'd be stoked to get a Donruss Diamond King or it's like Nolan Ryan or something. And there's just it was just fun. You chewed the gum. You actually chewed the gum back then. It wasn't like a dare, or maybe it was, or you still did it anyway. I don't know. I don't remember tasting quite as bad as it does now. But yeah, I mean, it was just fun. And then I think at some point, just as I got older, I kind of fell out of it a little bit, just because I got interested and into other things. And then, like a lot of people, I came back in 2021. Here we are now.
Love it, man. Love your background, and obviously there's a lot of nostalgia in what you mentioned
Powerful
with Donruss and the stale gum. Nothing like it. It's incredible that we've gone from ripping packs that literally came with chewing gum and to the current age of ultra modern chromium technology, kabooms, downtowns, you name it, they make it.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into a little bit of that in terms of like hobby evolution, the growth of sports cards and where it is today. But before we do that, I want to ask you a few more questions, just to sort of touch on your background and your sort of coming up within the hobby space. Was there a particular card or maybe a moment that really sparked your interest?
Like early on, I remember, and I don't remember the exact like year or the parallel to everything, but there was like a coins and cards shop, and you can kind of just imagine the sort of like the dust and the full boxes behind the counter and everything, and the nice old man that ran it. It's one of those, I don't remember the name of the guy, but I do remember going in there, and I remember seeing a Frank Thomas card that was in, I don't know if it was probably a screw down, but it wasn't like 4 screws. I think it was like 1, but still that was like, okay, but this has been preserved in something different. So I just looking at it, was like $20, and it was like 1990 or something. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's just, that that and those, like I said, those Donruss Diamond Kings, I think, and especially like putting them in the binder and stuff, like by teams and things. That really was just, it was fun because it became a social thing. It became a social thing like my friends. You so what you had, you traded, and obviously, eBay and then how that advanced and social media changing everything, of course. You didn't think about things in terms of really what they were worth. I mean, I knew that, Beckett magazines, of course, were out there and stuff, but I didn't really even reference that. It was just kind of like, did I like how it looked? Did I feel that I was receiving fair value based on aesthetics? Pretty much that alone, right?
Right.
And that, it's such an interesting thing because it kind of harkens back to how I think people around our age would think about those times more simply as just, not really better or worse, just was. Yeah, that was fun. It just was. But especially being around your friends and it being everyone kind of point out their binders, and it's just like, let's compare Rolodexes of cards, basically.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear you. It's crazy how much times have changed. I do the daily reflections, which, by the way, we need you to contribute. We want to get you in there. So we'll definitely have you write one up in the next week or two. But yeah, I wrote a piece recently about how I was talking to my dad, who grew up in a different era where the kids would stick the cards in the spokes of their bicycles, and just to hear that flutter, and it didn't matter what condition they were in. It didn't matter if they were banged up. It was just all about the meaning behind them. And they had, so much more emotional and value that, just wasn't centered around monetary hype, break culture, all of the things that we talk about today. And so, we want, with Collectors MD, we want to be able to give back, or kind of revert back to the joy, to the nostalgia, to the times when, things were simpler, and, you appreciated collecting and sports cards and everything else that, you were passionate about through a different lens. And so, with that, what does collecting mean to you today, versus when you first started?
I've been thinking about this too. I mean, one thing is it's definitely it's nostalgia, and it's a reminder of who I am, who I was, who I always have been, in terms of both athletes and the sports and the specific eras that I liked, but also that I felt connected to, and I could spend a better part of a couple hours rattling off random San Francisco 49ers anecdotes of games. My memory works in weird ways. If you ask me people's names and stuff like that, I really do. I want to try to remember. I am trying. It's just I go to my brain and it's like, yeah, we got nothing. But if you ask me like some scores from like 1996, 1997, things like that, 94, I could probably tell you, and I could tell you probably where I was watching the game, like my parents' basement and stuff. And that's, it was, I want to say I didn't know kind of what I had when I was collecting around that time too, but it's almost kind of a blessing in disguise, because now I can kind of look back and go like that. Wow, that was a stronger piece of my life than I realized then, and I think that's true with probably, a lot of things in life, right? It's like, right, this is going to be, you're going to find out, someone's going to tell you, a time traveler comes in and goes like, hey, this is going to be a lot more special than you realize right now. It's like, all right, buddy, you're in the way. Come on, but it would be, I mean, and it's true. And it definitely proved to be true now. And it's sort of just bridging that, that I would say gap, but just really the decades and eras and times. And it's nice because of the differences, both in a more sort of analog life to digital that you don't think you're ever going to get back.
Right.
People our age and from our eras talk about that stuff a lot. How it's kind of, it's not the way it used to be, kind of stuff, and it's true, but we say that a bit like in a tear in our eye, like, we're never gonna get that back again. And it's like, interestingly enough, cardboard can still do that. It can still, there's little things you see a card with a favorite athlete wearing a certain jersey, maybe with a certain stain on it. You go, I remember that game. I remember that. I remember how he got that kind of stuff. And it's like, now you're back. And so that's it right there.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about the hobby. And, we talk about a lot of the sort of bad things in the hobby, right? From the hype circles to the pressure that, the breakers apply to the comps and the flipping and the just nonstop noise. But at the end of the day, the hobby is still beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why, I created Collector's MD. At its core, collecting is all about connection. It's the feeling you get when a card takes you back to a memory, a moment, a person, like you just, mentioned. It's about chasing stories, not just the hits. It's about building something that reflects who you are piece by piece. And, the landscape, obviously it's shifted, but, it's still a place where I think, we can come together and enjoy a pastime that we have all loved for, since we were kids. And despite the pressure and the money and the temptation to sort of treat it like a casino instead of a community, underneath all of that, there is still the beauty. And, you just have to slow down for a moment in order to see it, I think. And
I'm sorry.
You're good. The last thing I was going to say there was when you collect with intention, you really start to rediscover the joy, the quiet moments, the thrill of a card that means something, not just, one that comps well. The friendships, the relationships that you form, the shared nostalgia, the artistry, the history, the humanity. The hobby, hasn't lost its soul. It's just harder to hear it or see it over all of the hype and the noise. But, for those willing to listen, it's still speaking loud and clear. So, I know you believe in that. And,
absolutely,
you're with me at the forefront of, the shift in wanting to find, what's been lost for so long within the space that we love.
And I think all of that involves if you're looking to sort of rediscover the true reason why you got back into this, or you started in the first place. I think like a lot of things, it involves being conscious, it involves being understanding that and kind of taking a step back, which I will say firsthand was more difficult than I thought. Because originally when I got back into 2021, I was like, I could probably make some money on this too. It seems like everybody is, right? They see these headlines, all these, with dollar signs and quite literally with amounts in them, right? Seems like I could. And, I did that and I tried to go that route, and I was kind of like, it had mixed results, mostly negative at first, but mixed results. And I'm kind of like, I don't really care about these athletes as much as I thought I did.
Right.
Like it's really hollow for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like if anyone wants to do that, more power to you and all that kind of stuff. It just wasn't for me. And I really couldn't run from the fact that I'm like, is there a Terry Kirby card on eBay or something like that? Like, am I
right?
Like that's a great looking JJ Stokes insert. Maybe I'll get that instead.
Yeah, exactly. You don't always have to go after what everybody else is going after, especially as it pertains to specific players and athletes. You don't have to get on the Caitlin Clark train or the Cooper Flag bandwagon in order to be a part of this. You can
Absolutely.
stick to your roots. You can stick to what you truly are passionate about, and that's okay. And I think, we need to remind people of that. Okay, so I want to pivot over to a different topic as it pertains to something that is really important and deeply rooted in the foundation of Collectors MD and everything we're doing, and that is mental health. And so one of the reasons I really wanted to bring you on, Andrew, is because of your honesty around mental health. And I know it's something that doesn't get talked about enough in this space. And when it is brought up, it's often, sort of brushed aside or treated like a side note, right? But the truth is, so many people in the hobby are dealing with things like anxiety and depression, compulsive behaviors, or just like mental fatigue or emotional burnout that comes with constantly chasing, comparing, and trying to keep up, right? So I think, in our discussions that we've had over the last couple months, you've been refreshingly open about your own experiences. And I think there's a lot of power in that, not just for people who, already relate, but for the folks who might not even realize yet how deeply this hobby can affect their mental health. And I think your voice, if you use it, in the right way across the right platforms, it can really help break that stigma. And so that's one of the main goals with Collectors MD. It's to create a space for conversations like this, where we can talk honestly without shame and hopefully remind people that they're not alone. So with that, I do have a few, questions for you that, I'm hoping you'll open up with us on. And, as always, if there's anything specifically that you don't want to touch on, or, you don't want to bring up in a public setting, there's no pressure. We could keep moving. But can you share a bit about your journey, sort of with mental health, and, if you've experienced things like depression, anxiety, or, sort of any challenges that you might have faced, especially, as of late?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, for context, I'm 41. I know I look like I'm 27, but I hate to
I was going to say
everybody.
24.
Yeah, it's close. I mean, actually, when I was up, side story, when I was up in Cleveland for the National, I did get carded at a bar, and I thought, like, it's kind of one of those. It's like, thank you, but I'm like, come on. It's like, what do you know? Double. Give me that. Give me that thing. But yeah, so I'm going to be 42 in August, and so for about now, I'd say over 30 years of my life, I have been. I always kind of try to think of how to phrase this part of it in terms of giving myself credit. I want to say dealing with, but living with or experiencing major depression and general anxiety disorder. So for about the 3/4 of my life, I think that's where my therapist and I have, or one of my therapists and I have timelined it back to. I was about 10 years old, and unfortunately, a lot of the things that I experienced and the sort of the trauma that I went through was related to bullying. It happened, at school. It happened, continued like through middle school, into high school. Happened, unfortunately, at a couple jobs that I had, both with managers, both the people I worked with, some relationships. Happy to say I've been married now for 14 years, have a lovely wife and a beautiful 7-year-old daughter. So no longer dating, but it did happen there too. And just in areas of life where I really just kind of got waylaid, by it. And it affected me in more ways than I did realize at first. It affected me into, it kind of made me feel like who you are, how you dress, how you speak, what you look like, your interests, your sense of humor, your style, and pretty much everything about you is wrong. It's flawed, and accordingly, you deserve to be punished. Now, nobody deserves to be punished for any of that stuff. You shouldn't have to apologize for any of it. But in my mind, I'm thinking it's like, well, all these people that are doing these things, they don't know each other. You know, it's just like person there, person there. So it's kind of, it's like, if you would have asked me quite honestly, do you think the world has it out for you? I'd have been, yeah, kind of. Like, I'm getting singled out and I don't really know why. And so I had it in my mind that, you know, who I am is not, it's not good enough. Like, clearly I've gotten the feedback from countless people. The results are in, no good. So I got to change who that is. And, you know, for me, at times that meant being a people pleaser. Well, you know, that's no good either, both because it's not who I am, but also ironically, people are going to reject that too. And you go like, all right, well, that's not good enough. You know, so what else? And then it's times, I guess, to just stop trying to make friends, stop trying to, you know, get a girlfriend, things like that. And so what do you do with that? And the answer was, at different points, internalize it. It's like, we're going to bottle it. We're going to, and then your brain is going to punish you badly. You know, at times it is going to be, we're already our worst enemies, but we're going to take this and like 8x it, you know, pretty much, or more at times. And so I think it's one of those things where if you're always still battling and fighting in life, whatever it is, physical ailments, mental health, or addiction, whatever it is, that's the best thing you can do, and that is awesome. It gets, I don't want to say it's wrong, but I think it's maybe objectively more problematic when you're in a state where you stop trying and you feel the need or the lack of desire to keep trying, because you figure, what's the point? You know, this isn't going to get any different. This isn't going to change. This has been persisting for a long time, and that's what sort of wrestled me into submission at different points. I just kind of went like, guess this is the way it is. You know, guess this is how life's gonna turn out. And so I started seeing a therapist here and there. I've probably seen now, gosh, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 for different reasons. Changed insurance companies or moved around, had to, you know, sometimes I'd work with someone 4 or 5 years, and I think we kind of both went like, we've made some progress, but I think we've reached the max of our working potential here. So, you know, no hard feelings. We're going to move on. And I'll be like, sure. Okay. That's a while to work with one therapist, you know, 4 or 5 years, and try something different. But yeah, I've worked with a lot of different people, still take medication daily, still see a therapist. I think let's say probably I average like twice a month. And I've done outpatient treatments. I'm doing outpatient esketamine, which is a nasal spray it's a derivative of the ketamine drug. So the nurse practitioner that I work with will come in and, you know, gives me the little squirt bottle thing that you'd use, I guess, for like allergies. It kind of look like that. Squirt. And then it's like 2 more after that in timed dosages. And she's there to make sure. I think the drug can make you, other than kind of nauseous and that sort of thing, can increase your heart rate too. So they have to monitor that. And you're in this like clinical setting and everything. So it's very, very watched over, very guided and everything. So I've been doing that. I've done a full round, I think it was 36 treatments of TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation therapy, where you sit in a chair and you have an electromagnetic pulse that's it's not like into your skin or anything, but it's this kind of thing that sort of pulses at your temple, frontal lobe of your brain, I think, closer up here, in intervals for like 40 minutes. So like each one of those 36 is like a 45 minute thing. You go for a while for that. And it's like once a week. So it's like over kind of a year thing because of like appointments getting moved around, that sort of stuff. So point being is, you know, definitely tried a lot of stuff. And I'm happy to say that now I'm in as good of a spot mood-wise consistently that I've been in for a long time. No such thing as it getting solved or cured. That doesn't exist as far as I know. I think the goal, according to my nurse practitioner that oversees all my medication and has helped me connect with different therapists, is that we want to get you as asymptomatic as possible. That's what they said. So just not painting, like a grim picture of like, I don't know that this is ever going to away. It's not that. It's just like realistically, it's probably going to be a part of you forever.
Right.
But it's like, can we lower that enough so that you're, present at home, you're a father, you're a husband, you're an employee, you're a son, a brother, all the different roles and hats that a lot of us wear. Can you do those things and not just be there and just kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of here, but I'm not really, I'm vacant mentally. Can you be active? Can you be involved and functional and living your life the best that you can? And so it's been a lot of, sort of, it's a process because it's a lot of adjusting. It's a lot of like, we're going to put you on something. It's going to be barely noticeable at first. We're going to ratchet it up a little bit, maybe a little bit more. And these are weeks that we have to do this, because if we go too far too fast, these things have side effects that you may not like. And we don't want to put you in those positions. And the whole time you're kind of like, at least for me, I was getting, I don't want to say, and I really try to not speak for all the other millions of people that are definitely going through this. But in my experience, that's the frustrating part, because it's kind of like, I just want to get going. Come on, I just want to live my life.
Yeah.
And it's just their trying. They really are. And it's just, that's how it has to go, right? It's like we can't, because especially with the drug part, these things are going to have their side effects anyway. It's just like, we want to lessen that as much as possible. One particular antidepressant that I was on, I was always what I deemed a hard gainer weight wise. I'm 5'10", I was always like 165, 170. And one of these drugs went, hey, so how you've always wanted to gain weight? Well, you're in luck. Here's 65 pounds in like 5 months. I'm like, well, I didn't really want, okay. And I'm like,
yeah,
ballooned up to like 233, and you're confused as to like whether am I eating poorly? That's probably the case. But I can't be eating that poorly, am I? I don't even know anymore. And so, when I went off of it, I some of the weight came off, but that's what can happen, unfortunately. But it's like, we can't
lots of side effects.
We can't just stop.
Yeah.
So
I feel like a lot of the meds these days are usually the reverse effect, where people are losing weight at a rapid pace. So yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you for sharing all of that. That level of honesty takes a lot of courage. It's not easy. And I really admire, you taking, the opportunity to open up like that, especially in a space where these kinds of conversations are just way too rare. Right. And what you said about trauma and bullying and how it made you sort of question your worth, your appearance, your interests, man, like that hits really hard. And I think, a lot of our listeners will agree, because that kind of pain doesn't just go away on its own, right? It shapes how we see ourselves, especially when it's something that happens that early on in your life, in your adolescence. It really can linger in how we navigate the world, how we trust people in relationships, how we show up, in relationships or at work or with our family. And sometimes, how we spend our money or how we collect, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize that mental health isn't something you just necessarily fix, like you were talking about. It's something that you need to face head on. It's an ongoing battle. It's a lifelong commitment, and there are a lot of layers to it. And the fact that you're still going to therapy diligently, you're taking your meds, you mentioned the outpatient therapy, and continuing to prioritize your mental health through treatment. That's not a sign that something's wrong with you. It's just a sign of how hard you're fighting to stay grounded and well, right? And I think that takes a lot of strength. So, we live in a world that rewards instant gratification, and that includes how we treat healing. We want everything to be better quickly, right? But the truth is, healing isn't linear. Some days you might feel like you're climbing out. Other days you might feel like you're just sinking right back in. And both, I think, are a part of the process. And we talk about that a lot with growth and recovery within addiction, right? Relapsing is very normal and it's scary, but it's a part of the process. It's a part of the growing and the healing. And I think the way you've shown up, not just for yourself, but for your family, your wife, your daughter, your community, and now even by just having this conversation with me, I think is huge. And I think you're setting an example, whether you realize it or not. I think you're going to, inherently give people the courage to be able to start speaking up and sharing what they're going through or how they feel when they, might otherwise be too afraid or too ashamed to admit that they have a problem or that they're really going through tough times. So I just want to say, I see you, man. I appreciate you. And I know there are going to be people listening to this who feel less alone because you were willing to go there. And so through all of that, decades of carrying that weight, working through the trauma, showing up for yourself and for your family, there's also been the hobby, right? There's also been collecting, which I think, back to the point I made about the hobby still being a beautiful thing for a lot of people. It's almost like an escape valve, right? It's something that we can lean on when we're really going through tough times. And that's something I really want to talk to you about, because for so many of us, the hobby is a form of escape or expression or even therapy in a way. So I'd love to ask, how has collecting played a role throughout that process for you? Has it helped? Has it hurt? A little bit of both. Why don't you, speak to sort of how you collect, how you think about the pieces that you purchase. I know you've been doing a lot of, we're creating a lot of content, which we'll get into shortly, but you've been showcasing your collection and how monetary value isn't necessarily the priority. And a lot of your cards have some emotional meaning in reasons why you may have purchased them or pick them up throughout your collecting journey. So love to hear some of your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah. And let me say, both thank you for seeing me and for just, again, just this opportunity. It's important, and it's not, not that you were ever saying or making me feel this way, like it's it's providing me a spotlight kind of stuff for myself. It's like, finally, my chance. But really, it's a chance to help others, because
exactly.
I have at my job, I have a blue collar warehouse job, and in those kinds of jobs, and I've had them before. You work with people from all walks of life, all different ages, races, backgrounds, income levels, experiences, that sort of thing. And there have been times where I've picked up, it makes you in tune with, you see someone kind of walking in. I know that look, when people are having a rough day. I'd like to think, and I don't say this in a bragging sense, but I like to think I'm a little bit maybe more in tune than some other people might be of noticing that, because I know what it looks like and I know what it feels like 1,000%. And so I just, I ask people if they're okay, and I won't try to pry, but if they start to steer the conversation that way, I'll say, hey, if especially if we're working physically right next to each other, which is some of our pack stations, we're packing products for shipments and stuff. We are. So if they're willing to talk about it, sure. And if not, of course, then they'll find the time and they'll approach me if they want to. But it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good to talk to other people about that and try to relate as much as I can. Again, not dictate, because I experienced it, this is how it will go. Of course, it's different, right? But I like doing that reveal. So I just want to say, again, thank you.
And before you jump into answering the question regarding collecting, I do want to quickly answer that or piggyback off of some of what you said, because you brought up some really good points that, going through tough times, whether it's depression, trauma, addiction, or just periods of deep uncertainty, it really forces you to confront parts of yourself that most people, I think, would never have to look at, right? It's painful, it's isolating, and it can feel endless. But when you make it through, or even just begin to find your footing, I feel like, maybe something shifts a little bit. You start to see others differently. Like you just mentioned, you become more empathetic, right? And mindful, more attuned, I think was the word you used, to what people might be carrying underneath the surface. And that lived experience, those scars and lessons can actually become a source of strength not just for you, but for the people around you. And, that's a huge part of the formation of Collectors MD for me, because I was struggling with a lot of issues with, addiction, compulsive spending, anxiety, depression. And what I wanted to do is basically take my biggest weaknesses and turn it into my best asset, not just for myself, not just for my own recovery, but so I could start giving back and helping other people. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're not just surviving for yourself. You're in a position where you can reach back and say, hey, like, I've been there too. You're not alone. You can start helping other people. And I think that's incredibly powerful. And sometimes the very things that almost break us end up being the things that allow us to build something better for ourselves and for others, right? Mm-hmm. Helping others doesn't always come from having all the answers. Sometimes it just comes from having the courage to be real about your own story. I think authenticity and, just being genuine with your experiences goes such a long way when, you're trying to help other people. So I really commend you for saying that, and just for being more empathetic and attuned to, your peers and those around you. So let's shift over to collecting. So I know we kind of got off track a little bit, but very important topic there. So I'll repeat the question. So how has collecting played a role throughout, this whole process for you? Has it helped? Has it hurt? Is it a little bit of both?
It has been a little bit of both. In the helpful sense, again, we're building the nostalgia bridge, right? Like, so I get to relive. I remember even too when I would record. So when the 49ers I lived in Omaha, Nebraska from, I think it was like July 94 to about that same time, 2003. So that was just before they won their last Super Bowl, technically in the year 1995, of the 94-95 season. But because I lived in Nebraska, and that was the first year of the NFL on Fox, and we had maybe like a decent cable package, but of course that's back in a time where it's like, the cable companies go, oh, you don't live in a state that has an NFL team? I don't know, you get this. Right. And it's just kind of like, it'd be like showing up to like grade school lunch. It's like, but I don't want to eat Salisbury steak. That's what we're having. If you don't want to watch that, then too bad you're not watching football today. There's no options. That's it. This is what you get. You get Packers Bears. I don't want to watch that again. That's the game. Right. And I would record these games on like VHS and stuff, and I put the labels on the tapes and stuff, and it would just be, again, I just those memories, and so seeing these cards again, and then also discovering cards that I remember there was a time in like 2009 and 10 before cards I guess got fashionable or everyone got renewed interest in it again. I'd see them on the shelves at Walmart, and I'd go, people still buying sports cards? Is that still a thing? It wouldn't be judging, but I would see them over there, and I'd see, of course, tons of them. I go like, is that still a thing? And then like discovering all the different sets and parallels and everything like that I had no idea existed. I'm like, I can't believe I missed out on that opportunity to just not even just like flip wax or something, but just to buy it and rediscover all that kind of stuff. Because when I started going through all that, I was like, oh, these cards are so cool and everything. And I'm like, but I had the opportunity all over again. So those were like the great things about it. And then on the flip side, I do think it's tied for me personally to the mental health side. But really, too, the more I think about it now, is it's true of a lot of things in life. Comparison really is the thief of joy, and it's hard. It's hard when you see if you look at your life and you're like, well, I'm not at insert premier card show here making deals for cards that are worth insert value with comma included in digits there, or I'm not doing these things. And if I'm not doing those things, then I mean, if you allow yourself, which this could be, this definitely for me was some of the depression from just other things, feeling behind in life or not being really where I want to be professionally and stuff. You go like, well, you must be doing it wrong. I'm not, right? There's no such thing. But I'm allowing it as like, well, if I'm not doing this, I'm not at the top of the top, then I'm I must be at the bottom. And
Yeah.
that's that unfair fight I'm having with myself. And I now have that wherewithal, that understanding, both because I have more of a renewed purpose of where I'm at and where I want to be and where I should have maybe been going the whole time. But just that I'm happier where I'm at. But just that, like, that wasn't it anyway. There's only so few people that can be there anyway. But that doesn't
Right.
mean you can't find, it's sort of like using a pickup basketball analogy. Just because your ball handling skills are not that of a true point guard, there's still a spot for you on the court. Absolutely,
Right.
there is. If you're willing to hustle, if you're great at like setting screens, there's a spot for you. Absolutely, there is. And so, using that in sports cards, it's like maybe you like 2014 era Panini stuff, or I don't know. You go by Topps Gold Label is one of my favorite sets too. Maybe you like that stuff, or Donruss Elite, like that underrated set, I think too. There's so many just different avenues. That's the beauty of it. That's the one of the best parts of the hobby, is that there are so many ways, sets, players, eras, teams to collect, that no right or wrong, and you'll find something almost assuredly that'll fit your budget and your time and your interest and your desire. I think the difficult part is kind of, I want to say, settling in or settling for it, but knowing, sort of drawing out like, where do you want to go, kind of creating like a little bit of a hobby path or plan for yourself, and figuring out how to get there, because it is attractive to meander at times, to go, what's this thing over here? However, that can be a bit dangerous at times to people that lack some sort of focus towards where I think is a best fit for them. And I include myself in that too, right? Because like, maybe flipping high end isn't for you, but that's okay, because it's not for a lot of people, right? That doesn't mean you still can't enjoy the hobby.
Right. Yeah. Mick, you brought up a lot of really good points. I think, just collecting is such a vast sort of experience, and there's so many different verticals or different categories that help people, and it can be, both positive and negative. It can be rewarding. It can also be a dangerous, slippery slope. And so you just have to be really mindful about how you're going about it, and just, making sure that you're collecting with intention, clarity, purpose, and not getting sucked into a lot of these traps, a lot of this predatory behavior that we're seeing out there. I want to pivot, and we still have a lot to cover here, so I'm gonna try to hit the turbo button a little bit. But I want to talk a little bit about the 90-day video challenge that you have set for yourself, and that's quite the undertaking. But I know you're going to do it, because you've been really committed so far, and you've put out some really great content. What has inspired that, and how's it been going? Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah. In short, I've been wanting to create content on a more regular basis for a long time, and I have done it. I would say in spurts. Like I've had a couple short-lived podcasts. I've created some blogs and websites. Creating another website right now. That I just didn't stick with, both because I maybe didn't deem it good enough for myself, which was sort of an overarching theme for a lot of things in my life, going back to the stuff that we talked about previously. But also some life things get in the way, too, and it just gets derailed, and then I just go, that's over with. And it probably wasn't, but that's just kind of how I treated it. And so I was like, I really want to stick with something. And so I was like, with video content, it's like, I have a phone, I can get some lighting, and I can, so I got this, it's what's helping light me right now, actually, is this some stuff from Amazon, and I can start going. And I've always had these ideas, these just sort of things that you just sort of bounce off of people. I'm like you. It's basically I'm riffing, but I'm riffing like I'm not even like pitching stand up. I'm just talking about like goofy hypotheticals with people at work for just the sake of talking goofy hypotheticals with people at work. That's it, right? I'm not going to go and I'm going to take this. And I mean, sometimes it's born from that, but like other times I'm just thinking like, what would happen if, that kind of stuff, right? We've all had those kind of conversations. And I'm like, I really should be right. If I want to do the content stuff clearly, I should be writing this down or just hitting record. And because of the times where I was so hard on myself, because of carrying that with me for so long, it would get right up to that point where I'd be like, I just don't know, and it's just like the rest of my brain's going like, just what do you mean you don't know? Hit the record. There's no one stopping you. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's just, but I don't know. And it's just like internally, it's like, you clearly want to do this. The rest of me is going like, I don't know what you want us to do here. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know either. And then nothing would happen. And so I said like, eventually it's like this has persisted. I've brought it up in therapy countless times. Like, this is something I really want to do. This is something I really want to do. And it's up to me to eventually do it. So it's like, you know what? I need to do something that keeps me on track. And I knew, much like a lot of the things, kind of once you get going, once you break the sort of metaphorical surface tension of the cold pool, you get in there, it's not so bad, right? Once you get that first one in, it's well, now I've started. Now I have this sort of content house plant going. I got to water it every day, right? Or else it's gonna die. And that's what it's going to take to consistently build up more of a following. Because I would have things. I raced pretty much everything I had on my Instagram page, which really was like about, I don't know, maybe 18 posts of different things I just sort of created. But if you would have looked back at that small little collection of stuff, you would have seen me kind of go like, I'm going to do a little bit, but not too much. Because I'm like, I clearly want to, but yeah, I don't totally trust myself just yet. Yeah. And now I'm in a better spot, both mentally of thanks to the ketamine and just kind of progress with other things, where I'm like, you know what, we're going to go. I don't know if I'm quite all in yet, but I got like 94% of my stack in there. I'm pocketing it, right? Yeah. And it's just like effectively I'm all in. Yeah. To the sense where it's just like, we're going to go. We're going to see what happens. What's the worst that's going to happen? Right.
Yeah. I'm gonna hold you accountable too. I'm gonna keep checking in to make sure that you're
everybody. I have been posting 8 of 90, 9 of 90.
I see those and I appreciate it.
Like my little savings tracker. And I need to do that because otherwise it's sort of just, it exists here. I can't see my hand here. It's there. It's the thought in theory. It's a nice idea. But that's the problem with that is I think that's fine for if it takes you a little while to get going. But if this has been festering for a while, which it has been for me for years, quite literally, then we need something else. We need a little bit of a push more. We need not a little bit more. We need more of a push. We need to be a little bit less gentle on ourselves and push ourselves, which is, I will say, with anything in life, especially if you've been going through a mental illness, that could be a very difficult thing to balance in terms of like, do I push myself? Do I allow myself to heal? Sit in this? But you still know, have I done a video today? No. Like that's a yes, no kind of thing, right?
Right.
But when do you kind of push yourself more? And, I like to think after all this time, I've gotten better in tune with that, but that can still be tough to do where I'm like, well, maybe that's okay that you didn't do a video. It's like, no, now it has to be non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And now we have to go. And now it's been, it's been better. And I've for analytics and stuff, I've maybe peaked a little bit, but I have said to myself, we're not even going to look. We're not even going to look. Not because it's going to be
you can't let that get the best of you.
What does it matter right now? Number one, but two, of course it's going to be low because like one, you hadn't been doing anything for a while, and now we're basically starting anew. but the pre-existing amount of audience was like 100, I don't know, 55 followers, something like that. So of course the analytics, like unless something blows up and goes viral, it's going to be low. But that's not the point.
That's not the
right.
point.
That's not the point right now. We're going, and then we adjust after. It doesn't have to be 90, but after, I don't know, whatever, arbitrary 45, 60, whatever. Some benchmark, we go, okay, now we have some stuff out there. Now we can get a better idea. This has worked. This hasn't. That's some sort of thing. But if we haven't even done that, we haven't even produced some things, gotten things on the shelf of our store. We don't know what people want to buy. We don't know what they like yet. We don't have anything. And so, but it's just getting stuff out there more. And that's the great thing about it. There's nothing stopping that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, I really commend you. I think facing, something like a 90-day challenge can feel like a really big undertaking, a really big commitment. And, sometimes we struggle with our own, we ourselves are our biggest obstacle, right? And it's something that I personally also have thought about a lot and have experienced firsthand, especially with building Collectors MD and putting out content every single day. Have you heard of imposter syndrome?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that, I've definitely found to hold me back. No one really talks about how that inner voice, can really be loud at times. And, it's the one that says, you're not qualified. Who are you to do this? No one's even going to care. And yet here we are, all with all the tools at our fingertips, phones, like you mentioned, platforms, communities, social media, and we still hesitate. Not because we don't, have what we need per se. Like anybody can pick up a phone and start a YouTube channel or create content on Instagram or TikTok. But it's really because we question whether we're enough, And so watching you to commit to something like that, the challenge reminds me that courage isn't about having no fear. It's about doing it anyway. And that's why, what I've been trying to do a lot with Collectors MD is sharing these daily reflections, which we still haven't missed since the very first day, which was back in March 25th to be exact. Showing up honestly, creating space for hard conversations. It's not always going to be easy, but it's necessary. And like you, I've learned that the more you lean in and just do it, just go for it, the more those doubts start to quiet down. It doesn't matter how many likes you get or what the analytics look like. At the end of the day, we're doing it for ourselves, and we want to help others, but we're also recovering ourselves, and we need more of this kind of consistency and vulnerability and intention, not just in the hobby but in life. So again, props to you for setting that tone. I'm going to ask one more question on this segment, and then we're going to shift over to the next segment. I'm also going to temporarily turn my camera off just because I got to go grab something while you answer this question, but I'll have my headphones in and I'll be listening. So don't feel like you're talking to nobody. But
we do it all the time.
On it, based on everything we just talked about, what are some tools, some habits, some practices that have helped you sort of stay grounded?
So I think when it comes to mental health, realizing that for myself, and I think this probably applies also to a lot of people, is being proactive, reaching out, fortunate to have loving, supportive wife. So I have a best friend here right in the house. So I can go, something's bothering me, need some support right now. But there's also, I have my therapist, I have my nurse practitioners. I've called 988 before, the suicide and crisis helpline, where they have volunteers 24/7, and pretty much just asking your name and what's going on, and then you go. And there's been times, quite honestly, I've spoken to someone for like 2 hours. Like they don't even really, at least in my experience, shoo you off the line. So they are two things I've told them. There are two things my therapist isn't: free and constantly available. So if that's another thing where you're looking for support, and I've called him many times, not even feeling any suicidal ideation or anything, just needing extra support, someone to actively listen, that's been great too. Exercise and diet, of course, we know that, but it really is important keeping your body as right as you can, and as engaged and grounded as you can. I think it will improve your mental health, but just kind of improve everything else around you. And yeah, I think it's really it's finding that support system as much as possible, both for cards and if you're looking for a certain one, or you're wanting to like finish a set, or you have questions about anything in the hobby, but also for your mental health too. I think it's kind of for both, and that can be tough to when you come into a new space, you don't really know many people, and you're not able to travel, go to shows, or maybe you live in a small town or something. It's not the easiest thing to do. I mean, I've moved around 6 times in my life, so it's like your friends don't always come with you. So starting over and then not being in school where it seems like you meet most of your friends in life can be tough. But, being parts of communities, Collectors MD, or finding group chats and stuff, of which there just seems to be more and more, and I think there'll never be enough, are also great resources to do that too. So just, connecting with people and being, like I said, as proactive as you can in improving the things that you can change as much as you can change them, and realizing your limits, but also realizing what's within your ability to change and what isn't.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can relate to a lot of that. For me, things like therapy and medication, obviously finding a community like Collectors MD, previous to Collectors MD, I went to Gamblers Anonymous meetings for a couple of years. I do an outpatient facility myself. So those were all game changers. But even now, I have to be really conscious about what content I'm consuming and who I surround myself with, not just in the hobby, but, in life. Friends, family, just making sure that my inner circle is supportive and helping guide me in the right direction. And so with that, we're going to pivot here to the next segment and talk a little bit about sort of this double-edged sword that is the hobby. And there's so much community and connection, like we were talking about earlier, but there's also so much sometimes toxicity and bad actors and predatory behavior. And I think it's really important to acknowledge those things, not just to protect ourselves, but to help our peers and ultimately, and most importantly, in my opinion, the next generation, the youth, the young kids that aren't necessarily educated or maybe don't necessarily have parents that fully understand the nature of this industry and kind of like some of the dangers that come with it. So with that, what's one of the most positive experiences you've had through collecting?
I think, honestly, I think it's been, it's been messaging people about things that I see on their stories that oftentimes are not always sports card related, or even if they are, just little comments that have been the genesis or seed for just a little sidebar conversation and getting to know them better. Because I think whether we know it or not, we sort of see a lot of people until you meet them in person in the hobby as a username, a logo maybe, and a snippet. And it's not, I don't personally think like right or wrong. It's kind of how a lot of people post on Instagram. It's usually where I had stories first, and that's kind of how you see it. But it's like when you start to humanize people that you see post things and get to know them better, get to have even text conversations, get a better idea of kind of like I don't know, how they think about stuff and how they came across certain cards. Those are, that's really the best part of it to me, and how I've really enjoyed the hobby the most, because you'll see just endless photos and videos of cards and stuff and deals happening and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like the people behind that, I think, matters most.
Sure.
And It's just like this, it's like reading the daily reflection posts, which are powerful too. And not just like a quote and then dash this person said it kind of stuff, but sometimes 5 slides worth of text that really shows deep, full thoughts.
Yeah.
Is excellent. But then also it's like getting to put a voice and a face to it, because like prior to that, I'm seeing clips of you like in your podcast, which like that's definitely how I'd see it, but it's gonna be different than like how you're gonna sound in casual conversation and who really Alex is. And so I think it's kind of like bridging that gap. People.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I try to be my authentic self, on these podcasts, but at the end of the day, to your point, like it's not always going to be a sort of a one-to-one. Like you're not going to always act the same way in one setting versus another. So I think it's really important to just always try to stay to your true self and give honest answers and, look out for your peers, look out for others. And yeah, to your point, like that's such an important part of collecting, and the hobby is, creating relationships, helping, the next generation learn and understand the ins and outs, the nuances that, they might not necessarily fully be able to wrap their heads around, especially, as sort of seasoned veterans like ourselves. You've got a few years on me, but, I'm no teenager, that's for sure. So, yeah. With that, have you ever felt pressure to perform post, or we've kind of talked already a little bit about putting pressure on yourself to post content, but I guess spend in a way, collect in a way that wasn't necessarily healthy for you?
Yeah, I've definitely entered some breaks where I did so out of boredom. Totally admit it. It's I think it's always kind of akin. Like I've done, handful of sports betting in the past, and probably still do some in the future. But I joke with people I work with where it's one of those things. You see those posts of like, hey, some guy in Tucson just hit a 14-legger and won all this $3 into 56K. And what they're banking on, I'm not saying it didn't happen. What they're banking on is guy in the recliner going 56K. That could have been me. Where's my wallet? Right now. Yeah. You don't hear about any of the people that lost. Of course, it's going to be like 99.99% of them. You hear about that guy, right? And there have been times where I think it's similar in breaking where I'm like, I can't sleep. It's like 3:42 in the morning or something. Whatnot's never closed. So it's like, sure, I'll take the Yankees for $40. You a Yankees fan?
Yeah.
No. Just
I'm a Yankees fan personally.
Like, bad example. Astros, something like that, right? Like, just say,
yeah. No, dude. Yeah.
It's the kind of thing. I'm not. Baseball is even really my third or fourth favorite sport. Just for me, it is. But it's just like that's what they're breaking. I'm like, something to do. Buys me 40 minutes of entertainment or whatever it is. Maybe on a good night for that. And ironically, that's how I've looked at sports betting before. But it's like for $10, I'm okay for losing that if it's 3 hours worth. Like I look at the value, like trade off there. I'm like, that's more fair. But if it's just like, again, 40, 50, 60, $100+ or whatever, and then it's like for like open a few packs, 8 minutes later, that's it. I don't really like how that felt afterwards, and I've done it a few times, and I'm like, I really wish I didn't do that, But I'm like, didn't stop myself in the sun leading up to it for sure.
Yeah, man, you brought up so many good points, and you articulated a lot of that extremely well. So spot on with the way they market or advertise, that one guy in Tucson who hit the 14-leg parlay. I mean, it's exactly it. It's an illusion. You see the highlight reels, you see the best hits, you see the best bets, but you don't see the guy who, blew through the final $500 that he had to his name, trying to, quadruple his bet on some, far-fetched parlay that was never going to hit. It's a goddamn shame that this stuff gets buried by all the glitz and glamour, all of the marketing tactics. And it exists in gambling, it exists in the hobby, it exists in day trading. We see it everywhere where there's some sense of impulsive decision making or dopamine rush, and we just have to educate people and give them the tools, the resources to make sure that they are protecting themselves. They're able to set boundaries and not fall into these dopamine loops at 2 a.m. when there's nothing better to do but to hop on Whatnot, which I love how you word it, is open 24/7. It's never closed. You can join a break wee hours of the morning on a holiday, and there's going to be something out there. It's scary. So with that, what is your take on sort of card breaking and break culture and its parallels to gambling?
I mean, definitely 100% feels like it is, and that breaking is gambling. There is risk. There's probability. Is random chance. I it's like on the one hand, as someone who doesn't say it, have a ton of money, like it's a great, for as expensive as hobby boxes and cases have gotten, realistically, it's kind of the only way that I would feasibly, I mean, I steer myself more towards singles, but if I wanted to go that way, get a part of a hobby box or a case, especially of a more high-end product. Or maybe it's just not available. Again, it could be like a small town example again, where it's just like, where's your nearest hobby shop? And it's like, well, this thing is right here in my hand. Maybe it's like an hour away or something. So it's both a convenience and an attractive thing too. But there just needs to be better just understanding of both the odds at play and the risks added. And it's getting the excitement surrounding those kinds of things is palpable, and it's you can't help but notice it, and at times be attracted to it. What do they call it? Like a carnival crier, kind of the step right up, right?
Yeah.
The megaphone sort of thing,
Yep.
You see the big bear, like, I want to win one of those bears. I was just at Dollywood, actually, in Tennessee, and I was taking a break because it was like 105 degrees outside, and they had a little carnival thing. You had to buy tickets, and I'm like, I saw one that was like a basketball thing. I'm like, all right, what's the thing here? Is the hoop like, 6 inches in diameter or whatever it is? I'm looking at it like, I don't know. It just seems like it's kind of level over there. I want to win one of those novelty basketballs. I did win it, but it's just like, I know going in, I'm like, I spent like, to get my 3 tickets or whatever, like $20 or something. So the trade-off for it is not even close. But right. I'm just like, knowing that, like going in, I understand what's at play here, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And the irony with that is those are always so rigged, right? They have like hoops that the ball doesn't actually fit in. They have their, triple rims. So they just bounce right off.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what breaking is. It's
happy,
rigged.
Like in Happy Gilmore, where it's just like, all right, like just close your eyes and concentrate in the mini golf thing, and he hits it up there, and then it's like, come on. It's like, that's how it feels. That's how breaking can feel at times too. It's just like, what do you mean? Yeah. Start out again. But and it's just, I for myself, like I said, I didn't like that feeling, that emptiness. I'm okay if it's a $5 scratch ticket at a gas station or something. I guess, I mean, there's math there, of course, but like, I guess for me going in, I'm like, I don't expect to win. If I do, it'll be this great thing. But I have that pre-prepared in my mind. And for $5, I'm okay. But there's that added pressure when it's not $5. I mean, certainly, I don't know what break. It would have to be like half of it, like the player's first name or something, off of a bench to get like $5 of a break or something. But especially the pressure's building like hundreds of dollars. It's like, I really need something here, and when you start using that language, that's where I think it gets especially problematic. I need a hit here. I need to have it. And it's just like, well, it's either going to happen or it's not, but it's still random chance. Like, we don't control, hopefully, you're not controlling the contents in there. That's a different discussion, I guess. But like, you don't know what's going to be coming out of there. That's the whole reason you're here in the first place. It's the
Right.
mystery and the fun and excitement of it. But because of that, it's also stressful.
Yeah, no, I mean it's insane. It's insane that it exists in the capacity it does without the guardrails, without the limitations, without the age gates. Eh, it's carnival games, like you said. And until a governing body comes in and starts making some changes and shifting things around, we're just going to continue to see people get hurt left and right. And all we can do right now is kind of just curb that and try to minimize it by creating a community for people to fall back on, a safety net, if you will. And so, I don't have the ability per se to move mountains and to make the changes necessary. I can help push for that reform and, encourage better, habits and tactics and encourage people to, advocate for reform. But there's only so much that one person or one entity can do. So, we really need people to come together as a community and help push for this.
But this is an excellent start. I want to say that this is an excellent start because you're right.
I appreciate you saying that.
Like to a large extent, what can one person do starting out? But this is, I don't know what would be a better, more feasible first step than this.
Right. It's funny you bring that up because I was talking to my dad about this. What if one of the big corporate companies, before I started Collectors MD, came in and said, hey, things need to be shaken up a little bit. There needs to be some form of regulation or government or, some rules in place to protect the consumer. And what if this was all set up by a corporate entity, leveraging their unlimited tools and resources and budgets to create a safe space for people to come to and lean on? What would that look like versus what, Collectors MD looks like today? I don't know. But we talked a little bit about the authenticity and, the genuine nature of it being built by somebody who's actually lived through those experiences firsthand. And, it's hard to say, but, I would kind of equate it to eating at a local, mom and pop type restaurant, having like, a burger or, maybe some type of dish from, a chef who uses maybe an old family recipe versus eating at like a fast food chain, like a McDonald's or Wendy's, where everything is cookie cutter and tastes the same from place to place. Right. Put a little bit of that personal touch on it. You've experienced these things yourself, and it lends itself to creating a more authentic experience and just a more holistic environment, I think, for the community. And that's not to say that a corporate entity wouldn't be able to create something really valuable for people to use and lean on for support and help. And hopefully, we get support from those companies, those individuals who can, help us grow this platform and mission and create more lanes for people. But I think it needed to start from the place it did. Okay. Absolutely. So with that, where do you think the line is between sort of excitement and addiction? Right. We talk about joining breaks and placing bets, and you can do that if you have self-control. Like, we're not saying that those things are wrong or bad or illegal or anything like that. It's more so about doing it mindfully and thoughtfully and making sure that you are staying within your means and not, lying to yourself or lying to your loved ones or overextending your finances or anything like that. Obviously the mental and emotional side of things too, but where would you say like the warning signs are in terms of crossing that boundary or crossing that line where it goes from excitement and this is okay to I've crossed the line and I'm now addicted and there's really no turning back?
It's like you said, I think it's recognizing things, signs that will, I think, almost inevitably pop up that are causing you to change your life around? Are you hiding mail? Are you spending money that you don't, really have, or probably shouldn't be spending? Do you find that you have to compulsively check whatnot, even if you're not planning on getting into a break? I've had to pull myself from. My thing is checking eBay, because I get like the push alerts for my save searches, which is I'm really good at just kind of like window shopping, one of my favorite pastimes. But still, it's kind of like, like I've been opening this app a lot today. It's just kind of like becoming more conscious about that. I think if you see those behavior things, and if you notice the physical things, is your heart rate increasing more? Like, do you need to actually hold your hand to your chest and kind of feel how you feel inside when you're interacting with the app? Which like on the other side, to be, if you pull something great, like of course your heart rate's going to increase. But is it doing that just like at the mere idea that, this could be the time? Are you approaching it like you're due, and it's kind of like the tower of numbers they have at roulette, like, hey, 7's been hitting, like the wheel has any care or knowledge about what's coming up lately, kind of stuff, to go like, yeah, you're right, 7 has been hitting. Are you trying to like reason this and sort of move the goalposts and to make this fit into an area of life that it isn't, or it shouldn't, perhaps? And I think that looks like, like we have different incomes, different budgets, different setups to our schedule. So I can't say it definitely looks like this, but I would like to think, I guess, that it's going to become obvious in one way or another. And it's when that time comes, what do you choose to do with that information? Do you go like, well, I still want to do this, push that out of the way? I think now it's kind of like we're ignoring something that's turned into more of a problem than it is a hobby or a fun pastime. And you're trying to now make room for it in your life. But there's nothing wrong. Like I said, nothing wrong about, I've joined breaks. I've found like cheap player breaks before. And we're like, let's see what happens. Haven't done a break in a while. Don't do them very often. This could be fun. Didn't turn into much, but I'm like, okay, well, I understand why I don't do them very often. But that's very different from have to do it. Using that line, have to. Like it's an appointment. You can't miss a dentist appointment. It's like, these things aren't the same. And it's like, no, I have to be there. Have to. You start using that language. Now you've made it consciously a part of your schedule and consciousness and things that you want to do, because you probably truthfully can't stop. And that's where some form of help needs to come in and help you realize, like, if you want to still do this, okay, but here's things that need to change to make it healthier.
Right. So well said, and so true. And I think a lot of that behavior is driven by the hype train, the breakers creating a sense of urgency, a sense of FOMO. There's this new product that you have to rip, otherwise you're going to miss out. Like, what's going to happen if I don't rip Mosaic basketball? What's going to happen if I don't rip Flawless Football or, National Treasures? And like, I'm going to save myself a couple $100 is what's going to happen, because the chances of you hitting that life-changing logo, man, are the same as winning the lottery. So it's just a matter of not falling into the patterns and the traps. And if you do want to participate and have a little fun, by all means, we're not stopping you, and we're not saying, you should stop. Just like you said, have a little bit of self-control and make sure that you're not, overextending yourself. You're not, hiding packages, lying to loved ones, spending money you don't have or you shouldn't be spending. These are all so important, and just such a huge motivator behind Collectors MD. We see way too many people just losing control and then just not wanting to talk about it. And I've been caught up in it too myself. And breaking just felt like the only way to get those big cards until you start to realize that it's draining you financially, emotionally, physically, even at times. And, it just takes such a toll on people, and they don't realize until it's too late. So we're going to shift over to our next segment. And I think this will be a little bit more sort of hopeful. And that is, what does collecting with purpose or with intention look like for you now? And so my question for you is, how do you define your PC today?
It is, so a couple of things. One, I am now more set collecting. 2000 playoff momentum football stargazing. They have an insert set, so it is 3 colors, red, blue, green, each, and it's 100 players in the set. So they have the retail exclusive full or standard, card version, which are not numbered but have the green is like 1 in 4 packs, the blue is 1 in 40, and then the red is 1 in 90 packs. And then they have die cut versions, which are numbered. The red is out of, let me do this right, 75. The blue is out of 50, and the green is out of 25. So trying to go after those, and they don't pop up very often. A lot of like good Hall of Famers on there: Jerry Rice, Steve Young, Peyton Manning, Barry Sanders.
Sure.
But also like more obscure, like Natron Means, Tyrone Wheatley, guys like that you just wouldn't think of. But thankfully, those guys I've been able to get for good deals too, and it's just kind of random auctions. So that's more structured. And then I have this sort of freewheeling other thing that where I have like, does this card, do I like the set? Do I like the aesthetics and the photography? I think is so big too. Just like, does it capture a true moment? So much of like Panini's stuff is quite literally people floating in space, or like in Wemby's, like standing on a stage. It's like, do something basketball related. Good, click. All right, a little bit all right, right there. Yep. And it's just like kind of ruins the imagery for me when you see like the curtain back there of it. I'm like, Topps was so great. I was just looking today. I saw a gold refractor. I was like 04 or 05, 06 Topps Chrome gold refractor of Jason Richardson, and he's doing a reverse dunk. So the photo was taken from the backboard, behind the backboard. And so you see the back of his head and the back of his jersey going to it, and then all the other guys like in amazement, like this, trailing the play. And I'm like, that's a moment. I don't remember the specific game, but that's really cool, right? Or like with Tayshaun Prince, they have one of his Topps Chromes card is the block on Reggie Miller. That's an iconic moment. They captured that. It wasn't just him with the basketball dribbling. We could get that at any time. This was Eastern Conference Finals, right? Like that's a moment in time. They got that. Where LeBron James is the chalk toss card. Like that's cool. And so when I see things like that, and it gives me pause because I've like a lot of people on eBay, you're just scrolling. If it causes you to actually tap on the listing and then look in and kind of sit there for a little bit, that's getting saved. And then when the funds come, it's maybe getting purchased. Kind of like where that fits in. So I have like the structured, and then I just have this like kind of, did you see a sale on this specific snack item at the grocery store that's kind of new and you want to try that type of Oreo? I'm like, I do want to try that type of Oreo. Add to cart, right? And so it like allows me to do a little bit of both because I don't want to be bored, but I also want to be a little more structured. And it kind of like, that's what's in my Zion case. It's a little bit of both.
Love that. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think like, they have these what are they called? Iconic moment cards in Panini 1-in-1. What are they called? Timeless moments. Where they take like those iconic images or shots from a specific moment, like the Ray Allen 3-pointer in the Game 6 of the NBA Finals back when the Heat were playing the Spurs. A lot of people say that was like the Ray Allen Finals for LeBron. They would have lost if he didn't hit that shot. The fans were already leaving the arena. Such a cool, iconic moment and card. And I think you can find those cards on, in certain sets that might not be the most hyped or might not necessarily be talked about or, sought after, like the Tayshaun Prince moment you mentioned. people have started to notice, I think, in more recent sets, for instance, like the Saquon Barkley backwards hurdle, they actually included that card in the 2024 select set as his field level. And because of how iconic that card is, it's now the Madden cover. Those parallels are going for way more than they otherwise would. Right? Like a normal Saquon Barkley select card, 7th year or whatever he's in, wouldn't be going for hundreds of dollars. It'd be a $20 card, even in like the tie-dye or the copper parallel or whatever the case may be. But like you can take time, be thoughtful, be mindful about like what you actually are looking for. And if you do your research and you scour eBay or Instagram or wherever, you could find cards that are inexpensive that might, have meaning and value to you beyond just what's hot, what's hyped. And so I really respect and appreciate that approach. With that, do you have any boundaries in place to protect your piece, or to protect sort of how you are approaching purchasing or collecting in general?
The short answer, honestly, is no, but it's not because I don't think it's important, for all the reasons we just talked about, right? I just, I guess, like if you were to look at my watch list on eBay, for example, which is usually close to maxed out at, I think now they're at more generous 900 items or something. It all kind of, I've just found that like once I sort of hit, for me, about, I'd say kind of a bit arbitrarily, but not completely, $350 or something like that for a card, I start really going like, does this card, just because it costs like $1,000 or something, like if I'm looking at it, does it make me feel any different if I were to own it? And if I feel like the answer is almost assuredly no, then I'm like, what's the point? What do I need? I'm not, especially if I'm not even an attempt. If the thought of flipping it is not even close to my mind, I'm like, don't need it. And I guess that's just for me personally, having that now internal control of it. But also too, like just knowing my finances, kind of like, I'm like, that would give me a lot of anxiety, just like the as it is now. Like I don't have the funds set aside, or I'd have to sell some other stuff. It would not be possible. But so like other cards, like I actually kind of like give me more pause. I'm like, do I need this $75 card right now? I'm like, could buy it, but would I rather have this 55? So that's more like fun choices where I kind of like, well, maybe I'll just get this. And I'm playing like a little bit of like almost safe or fun FOMO thing of like, I don't want to miss out on the other one too. But I do have those, I do have to make those choices still. And those numbers and amounts and cards and everything look different for everybody. But I personally don't. I guess it's just kind of like that. It's sort of just knowing where I'm at financially, and then knowing kind of what fits into my range. But also a lot of my safe searches are very specific of like blocked out years, price range set in. I think that's one thing you could do, right? Is the suggestion is like if you just put no cap on things, it's kind of like, well, you're going to get everything. And it's going to show you extreme things that you may not have been considering before and maybe still can't really afford. But if you put that sort of our line there, it's like, well, we're going to cut this off at a certain dollar amount. At least that, I think, would kind of filter in more. Still doesn't prevent you from, taking that search away and searching for whatever you want, but it's something, so I think those things have helped me too.
That's great. Yeah. And that's something we have been exploring quite a bit, not just, in conversations on podcasts and such, which we have, but also in the daily reflection. It was this week actually where I wrote a piece about how to filter your PC. And, basically make sure that you're asking yourself the important questions. Does this still bring me joy? Does this still reflect who I am as a collector? Does this card fit my PC? Does ripping this product even make sense for the direction I want to go in? And, ultimately it's just really thoughtful reminders. Like they don't have to be rigid rules or anything, but maybe you decide you no longer collect certain players, whether that be pitchers or defensive players in football, or maybe you avoid horizontal cards or die cuts or jersey pieces, or certain parallels that, don't necessarily do it for you or bring you joy. these are filters that you can create for yourself, and it allows you to keep your PC aligned with your identity and not the hype. Again, it all sort of ties back to true growth in accountability and everything that we were talking about earlier with not hiding packages and dodging questions or conversations about how much you're spending, and letting honesty lead the way. So I really appreciate your answer there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I got your text. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's actually now going to be a little bit shorter than that. And I like just a few minutes.
No worries. We're about to close up this segment.
I hate to cut it short.
It's all good. It's all good. One last question. And you could keep it brief as it pertains to purposeful collecting. But what advice would you give to someone who's been struggling to find balance in the hobby?
Knowing your budget, knowing what is important to you, and knowing specifically the cards you like. I think if everyone, even if it's taking out a piece of paper, writing it down, or typing it out on your phone or whatever, you'll find the things that have true meaning to you, whether it's a year, a player, a team, like we talked about before. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get to it, but I can just show you like really quickly, like this, for example, for me, that's like the cheapest card, but like from that era, Donruss Elite doesn't usually always get like all the hype, but at the same time, more rare things, like this of, Rita Hayworth from 1936, right? Like,
yeah, I have no idea what that is, but like it means something to you, and that's awesome.
It was like a $30 card, by the way, like a $35 card. Just because I like older movies and stuff. Again, that ties into who I am, and I think that's most important, is being true to yourself.
Love that. Yeah, for me, it's all about collecting things that mean something to you, not just market value or what the breakers or social media tell you what's hot or what you need to have. And the boundaries are key. I don't try not to keep my phone by my bed or in bed with me past a certain hour. You got to pause before making a purchase, and journaling, I think, helps for a lot of people too. All right, so before we close out, I'm going to hit you with a few rapid fire questions. And so just say the first thing that comes to mind. You don't have to give me like a long thought out answer. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Favorite piece in your collection?
I have a 2016 Prism. I forget it's a green parallel PSA 10 of Steve Young that I picked up a few months ago. Really like that.
Love it. One card you regret selling or giving away. Doesn't have to be something you sold.
It was one of my bigger purchases I had. It was a 69 Topps Lou Alcindor SGC 3.5 with really good centering and no fisheye blemish on the front. And I did it to liquidate to kind of buy some other things that I intended to flip, which I did with mixed results. But yeah, I kind of want that card back.
Okay. Favorite moment in the hobby to date?
Ooh, favorite moment in the hobby. Gosh. Because I really struggle to find one from like maybe early on. I will say, quite honestly, this connection and this show, because this is my first podcast at being a guest on a podcast, and I'm really grateful for that.
You don't have to say that, but thank you so much, Andrew. We appreciate that.
Well, I said it anyway. It just happened.
I got two more.
Okay.
One thing you're most looking forward to, and it doesn't necessarily have to be hobby related.
I'm interested to see what happens with the Fanatics license. Like I think Topps does a lot of things right photography wise with cards, and I even though I'm not a baseball fan, I find myself really going back to like mid 2000s cards on eBay. Interested to see what they do there, because I think a lot of the stuff that they put out, the non-licensed stuff, which I'd be more interested in if it were licensed, looks great if it had a license on it.
Did you see the leak that dropped today?
I did not.
There was a leak from apparently the Fanatics or Topps factory showing some licensed NBA cards that are going to be coming out this fall after, the October, I think it's October 5th or something.
Wow. Okay.
Date where they will officially assume license. And there was like a LeBron card on there, auto with him wearing the Lakers jersey, Wemby with the Spurs jersey, obviously Cooper Flag rookie cards, things like that. So mostly Topps Chrome. There was like a new high-end set that looked very much like Flawless that had like diamonds in it. So curious to see how the hobby reacts to those things. But love it. And then lastly, one last message you want to leave the audience with.
Be as true to yourself as you can be, and that's easier said than done. But there's a spot for you in this hobby, and maybe it just takes a little bit of time to find it. But I hope that everybody does.
Incredibly well said, and couldn't agree more. All right, Andrew, thank you so much for showing up today with so much honesty and vulnerability. It really takes a lot. If you're listening and this resonated with you, just know that you are not alone. The hobby should be a space of joy and connection, not pressure, and that's exactly why Collectors MD exists. Make sure you go follow Andrew on Instagram. It's at Tecmo Cards, TECMO CARDS. Check out his 90-day video challenge. He's putting out some really great content. A lot of sort of Seinfeld-like humor. I'll leave it at that. But he's been doing a great job, and I'm really proud of everything that you continue to put out. And you have a fan here, so I'll continue to support and cheer you on from the sideline, and keep the conversation going. On all of the different places you can find us on social media: Instagram, TikTok, X, Reddit, Mantle, etc. We will be back with episode 5 of the Collector's Compass in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. Until next time, keep collecting with intention and not compulsion. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.